veins. Blue in one eye, red, white, and blue in my brain. I'm Bulldog born. Bulldog, that's my breed. I was born to follow where the Bulldogs lead.
Ladies and gentlemen, we call him the Hawk. He's a proud Braybrook boy. He's played 350 AFL games. His favourite song is Thunderstruck. He's got his own wing on the Whitten Oval. He's a Charles Sutton medalist. He's a Bulldogs captain. Not even a bolt of lightning can subdue this great man. It's the one and only, and thank God we've still got you here, Dougie. Dougie Hawker.
Paul, Matty, how are you, boys? Very funny, Paul, that introduction. And I know we haven't touched on this, but it was a very frightening, very scary, boys, experience. I actually did leave my body. Did you believe that? I left my body and I got to the pearly gates. And the great man was standing there waiting for me. And that, of course, was EJ. That was Teddy. And you know what he said? Rack off, Hawk. We're not ready for you yet. So the great man said, rack off. And then Charlie Sutton popped his head over the back and said, yeah, piss off, Dougie.
It's a bit like a story Eddie McGuire told once, a similar thing where Teddy would have just said to God, you're sitting in my seat.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, it's good to have it, Dougie. That story went around all the networks, mate.
Yeah, it did.
We were sitting back with a great deal of pride and being thankful, Matty and I, that you were well and happy and safe, but equally proud that, hey, that's one of our panel members. That's one of the inside the Kennel podcast greats, and we're glad that you went well and everything's okay. But these things happen in life, don't they?
They do, Paul, Matty. You can have a laugh about it now, but I must admit at the time it was pretty frightening, and I was just very, very lucky. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, it was a scary experience, and we're here to tell a story and have a bit of a giggle about it. That's what life's about, isn't it?
Absolutely, Doug. We actually got a text from Ricky Kennedy while you're in hospital, and he said, if Dougie doesn't make it, can I step into Doug's shoes on the podcast? So just watch out for it. Now,
I tell you what, Doug. I tell you what. We had him on the other night. He was great. He was great entertainment. But he talked about when you're in hospital on another occasion, and you're having some heart. You're having some heart.
Go on. Yeah,
you just want to know whether you actually had one. Was what he told us.
He actually rang me, Matty. Paul, he rang me and said to me, now we actually know you got a ticker. I said, you idiot, Kennedy, you mug. He said, I've always wrote about you being so soft and weak out in your wing there. You couldn't get any wider than three rows over the Whitten on your wing. I said, you're an idiot, Kennedy.
Matty, who do we have, mate? Who's the great that Dougie's going to break open and tell us all about?
Well, we move over from Lightning to the Thunderbolt himself. It's the great Georgie Bisset from Braybrook, Dougie.
Matty, Paul, Georgie Bisset. Yeah, Braybrook, member of the team of the century, which, by the way, boys, we had 4 from Braybrook. Can you believe that?
Unbelievable.
And that no junior club in the history of AFL football could equal that. And, of course, the great Teddy Whitten captain. I was vice-captain, Georgie Bisset, and the late Wally Donald on half-back flank, who played now 54 premiership, I reckon, premiership. So to have 4 members in that team of the century was fantastic. And to have a bloke like, and I remember my mum. My mum was a passionate Bulldog supporter, late Thal, and I love my mum. And Mum used to come home and she called wee Georgie. It was wee Georgie Bisset. And I thought, what do you mean by wee Georgie? She said, you wait to see the size of him. He's only a little fella. And she said, but guess what? He can play footy. He can play footy. And she said, no, he'll play in the forward pocket, did a bit of roving. And she said, I never say she kicked so many goals and, unpredictable goals. He was a great goal sneak. And in his own right, and again, he was a great rover. A great rover, Georgie Bisset, and a fantastic fella. He must be nearly 80 odd now, 80-something, 80. He's got to be nearly 80 because I reckon he started in the early 60s.
Yep.
He might have played 10 years at the Bulldogs. He had to have played 10 because he went to Collingwood, didn't he?
Yeah,
Before
correct.
we talk about that, we'll talk about, obviously, the Bulldog stuff. He must have played Matty, what, 170, 80 games for Footscray?
Yeah, very close, Doug, as always. He played 166 games from 1963 to 72, so 10 seasons at the Dogs, and then he played 41 games at the Magpies. But 288 goals for in the red, white, and blue. As a rover, changing the forward pocket, not unlike Brian Rawls, sort of like figures there. So what an incredible player he must have been, Doug. Did you get to see him play much yourself?
I saw a little bit. Particularly later, and then obviously when he'd gone to Collingwood, I saw him a bit later. In the probably late 60s, towards that 70s marks, and a fantastic player, just bloke of, And I had the great privilege to meet the man, obviously later on in time there when he became a schools coach at the Bulldogs under Terry Wheeler. He was just a fantastic fella, and he just a good bloke. And again, he could play footy. And I remember, boys, and you can touch on this now and tell me, it must have been, I heard you say, Matty, he could have won the Brownlow. I think it was 69, was it?
Mm.
And Kevin Murray, Bulldog Murray, beat him by 1 vote. And I reckon that last game against Carlton, it was Ian Robinson, who Georgie whacked. And they reckon Robbo hit him about 7 times. Robbo whacked Georgie. And obviously being reported, you don't get a vote for the Brownlow medal. And correct me if I'm wrong there, someone said he had a stack of the footy that day, and he kicked 5 or 6 or 7 goals. He kicked a stack of goals.
Yeah, he had 30 touches with 6 goals.
What did he do, Matty? He had what?
30 touches and 6 goals. So that's guaranteeing you at least 2 votes. He's won the Brownlow, basically, if not for that report.
He's had 30 possessions and kicked 6. Well, he was robbed of the Brownlow. When I say that, because he got found not guilty. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct. So, but if you've been reported on match day, you're ineligible to get votes. Well, they didn't put votes in at that time. So, it was a technicality.
So, Dougie, so back in those days, Matty, so if you had a crack at someone and you were, is it still the same rules as today? If you were found guilty, you were ineligible to win the Brownlow, or was it just for that game you weren't allowed to receive votes?
They don't give you votes, Paul. Yeah, has that changed now? Is blokes, if they get reported, do they still get votes?
Yeah, you can still get votes
on the ground if you're the best player.
That's right, because it just makes you ineligible overall. So the fairest and best isn't affected. It's just the because otherwise you're presuming guilt before the fact. So it's a change, and it might have even been the Georgie Bisset rule that they've changed it because it's in hindsight looking back, Georgie could have had a Charles Brownlow in his top drawer.
Mm.
So he would have probably won the best and fairest, because Dempsey had a stranglehold, didn't he? I mean, Gary Dempsey had a stranglehold in that era of winning the best. He would have won the B&F, surely.
He did,
Matty?
Yeah, he did in '69. Yeah.
Did he? Yeah. So there you go. I mean, he was a fantastic goal sneak. And you know what he had, boys? He had great courage. Paul, he had great courage for a little fella, and his attack on the footy was always straight at the ball, and he was happy to have a crack. Someone, if you, I remember one day, I reckon, I don't know if it was Carl Dittrich, but he threw the ball away and just had a crack at him. It may have been Carl, if I can remember now, but he wasn't scared to have a crack or have a go as well. And I don't know what the reason was, Paul or Matty, about him leaving the Bulldogs on that 10-year deal that we saw the North Melbourne get Rantel and Dougie Wade and all that stuff. I think he wanted to go to Collingwood to play finals. Is that a fair call?
We'll have to ask him that. I really don't know the answer to that, Doug.
Yeah, so Paul, he still had. I think he might have played 2-3 years there at Collingwood. I think he might have. Yeah, he would have played 2 or 3 years for sure. Because I think he would only been about. What he played, Matty? 2 years, did he? Yeah, he's played 2 years, so he's probably played nearly. He would have played 40 odd games there. Did they play final? I wonder if they played finals, Paul, Matty, in that era. 71, 72, 73 to be around that mark, wouldn't it?
Yeah, 73, 4. So I've got a feeling they did. I know that in 74 he won the media, Australian media, football media MVP, so the most valuable player, 73 rather.
At Collingwood.
At Collingwood. So he's obviously had a bang good year that year. And
Dougie,
yeah.
What he would have been kicking, what, torpedoes or drop kicks at that point? What was his, back in that day, their choice of kick?
Paul, he'd be kicking flat punts.
Wow.
And he was kicking flat punts. I remember it. Yeah, and he'd kick torpedoes, but a lot of them were flat punts.
Yeah.
And a bit like, I shouldn't compare him to a bloke like Peter Hudson, but Hudson he kicked them flat.
Yeah.
Even Dougie Wade at times, even though they were some torpedoes, that was flat punts, and that's the way they were. And again, we've got to go back, to the size of Georgie Bisset. He was only a little bloke, but strong, solid. And I remember a great story, Matty, Paul, that you asked me about this. He went to the Sunshine Drive-In with his horse and cart. Now, he pulled up with his horse and cart. He put the hearing, the speaker on the side of the horse. He took his girlfriend on a horse and cart.
What year was this? 1847.
This is when he was I reckon he would have been playing at Braybrook. He was only a young bloke. He was only a young fella. You got to ask him this. Say, Hawk, reckons you went to the Sunshine Drive-In, it was, on a horse and cart.
He wasn't a milkman, was he?
He wasn't a milkman. No, he wasn't. Paul, he wasn't even a milkman. But he went to the drive-in. You got to do this. You got to ask him that. But anyway, just going back to he was a great guy, great fella, very good skills coach for the Bulldogs when he came there with Terry Wheeler, and to have him around the footy club, he was just a joy, just a fantastic bloke, just pleasant, and treat everybody with respect, the way we all want to be treated, and that was we Georgie Bisset, and he could play footy.
Fantastic, Doug. Well, Doug, that's him knocking at the door right now.
Send my love to Georgie. See you, boys.
Good on you, Dougie.
Stay safe, Dougie. He was barely bigger than Caleb Daniel. He was cheekier than Liver, and he had the cult hero worship status of Bailey Smith. We're talking about 207 game veteran, 337 goal player, and the team of the century forward pocket. Believe it or not, he represented Victoria. He was a Charles Sutton medalist in 1969, also the same year he was runner-up for the Brownlow medal. Believe it or not, ladies and gents, we have the one and only Footscray favourite son and Braybrook boy, Georgie Bisset.
That was very good. I hope I can live up to it.
Well, absolutely. You've got a long list of accolades there, Georgie, and we'd love to start by asking you, can you describe for us what type of a player you were in your own words?
Oh, it's hard to say on that way, because one of the main assets I didn't have, and I didn't have any speed. So what I tried to use myself is use my body as much as possible to get the ball. So I learned from Braybrook and how to use our bodies to get our opponent out of the way. So that was quite all right. And going for marks, I had to be in front. I couldn't get behind because there's no way known I can get in front. So I learnt the art of make sure that I can stand on their toes, and so they can't get lifted and I'm up.
That sounds like an awesome technique.
Yeah, it was.
So did you learn that at Braybrook? We'd love to hear how you started your career.
Yeah, I could tell you there are long stints there that where I learnt before. Well, but it was very, see, I started off at West Footscray, and my mother moved up to there and I come up there. So I used to train at West Footscray, but I was only about 12 then, and they had under 16s was our grade. And I used to train, and I never got a game. And go home, Mum asked, did I go? No. And this day I said, I'm not going to footy, the game today. And she said, oh, you bet. I said, no. And that day they were give me a game. So I missed out playing with West Footscray. And then Mum moved up to Braybrook, Commission Houses, and then I got introduced to one of the best clubs I've ever been in, was Braybrook. And I started with the under 16s there and played 2 years there, and then I went to the under 18s and then went down to Footscray. But no, I learned all my craft at there. But one of the biggest assets, when I was 17, I went to the Brooklyn Footy Club, at North Footscray. We played on a Sunday, and I was 17 playing against men, and that was a really learning point for me, which helped me a lot, a real lot. It was very tough football.
Oh, I imagine it would have been.
Oh, geez, I could tell you some stories there would curl your hair. But I, as I said, the only thing is I used to have to ride my horse there because of the buses or anything there. I couldn't get any other way. So, and it was good there. There was plenty of paddocks to tether my horse and let her have a feed while I played footy. But that was a big learning point for me, the Sunday football.
Well, you sound like a cowboy riding up to battle there, Georgie. And I imagine, and I know you're conferring with the gentleman who's partially obscured in the background. It's the great Ray Walker. Hi,
Yeah.
Ray. Mr. Wave.
Yeah, good. How are you, mate?
And Ray himself is from Braybrook Footy Club.
Yeah, I've always said to him, he gets a bit biased when I tell people there, and I've told his son many a times he's the best junior football I've seen at Braybrook, and we had some good ones.
Wow, my word, did we? What was so incredible about the Braybrook Footy Club? Because it's obviously conjured up some names of famous, some of the most famous players.
Yeah, well, I think it was so much of the coach, a bloke named Pappy Hansen, which Ray would have spoke about. He knows more about Pappy than I did, but he had a very good knowledge of the game. They had, and then I had Roy Anderson at my under-16s and Kenny Attrell in the 18s. We're all different coaches, but they had their own nick. Like Roy, probably less, but he had a funny attitude how to get to the players. And one day I'll tell you this story. I think when I was under 16 and I was riding horses and I used to go to football on, and Roy, we were playing Spotswood and we were undefeated, they were undefeated, and we were going down to Spotswood Reserve. And he wanted to go down by bus to keep us all together. And I said, look, said to him that day, I said, look, I'd like to ride my horse down there, Roy, because at the moment I've been having trouble with it. It's only a youngster, but it was a bit of a rogue. So I finally thought I had in charge of it, so I have to go down. So smart bum I was, I went down there and it threw me off at Somerville Road. And lucky my mates were with me because they come down with me and we're chasing the horse down. And when we got it, it was 3/4 time at the game and we lost the game by a point. So that was one of the funniest days I did have in football, but I weren't popular with the coaches for a while.
I imagine you wouldn't have been.
No, I wasn't, but we only got beat by a point. So, but the thing was, no, very good coaches up there, and
Sure. And we probably, I say we, Braybrook probably had the greatest player of them all in the great Ted Whitten, who just preceded you to go from Braybrook to Footscray. Was his legacy and his stature really looming large at Braybrook at that time? And did you aspire to sort of follow in his footsteps?
no, I not following because I wasn't a Footscray barracker. I was an Essendon barracker. But when I got down to Footscray, I really found out how great he was.
So tell us about your arrival at the Kennel. Who were those sort of big characters when you arrived, and who took you under your wing, and what was it like to meet the great EJ and Charlie Sutton?
Well, when I went down there, it was funny because I got to give a lot of credit to Joey Ryan. Right. He got me down there because there's no way known I was coming down, and he spoke to me one day, and I was lucky. And then Roy Evans was a big important person in my career because I felt he was the best Footscray coach I played under. He was a very good football brain and everything, and I was surprised and he never ever coached Footscray seniors. And then I met EJ. Well, I rate him the best football I've ever seen. So, and they say to you, well, what about Bobby Skelton and I said, yeah, Rovers, but EJ could play every position.
Right.
But he was a star in every position. He just never played him or filled him.
Indeed. And some of the other players who were there at that time, included the great Charlie Sutton, who you ended up being bestowed his famous number 6. Did you recognise the significance of being handed that Guernsey?
Oh yeah. What I've learnt there and that, as it said, was a big honour, and do it well. I hope I did. The same as the other blokes that got it now.
Oh, absolutely. Was there a hand, like a jumper presentation like there is these days?
Yes, it was at the Medway Golf Course, and we're all out there, and Ockles and myself got our own Guernseys on the same day, which was an honour for us, and we were wrapped. And Jimmy Mid gave it to us, and EJ there, and it was a really good night.
Did they say anything when there's a handover? Was there?
Yeah, they mentioned the Charlie and people that wore it before, you know, and but the number 6, I was very proud to wear it.
Absolutely. What a jumper to wear, Georgie. And it wasn't long before you got your first taste of action. So I believe it was round 1 in 1963. You just turned 20 years old and you got the call up to go down to Arden Street against North Melbourne. Can you tell us about how you were selected and a bit about that particular day?
Yeah, I was when I got picked, I was in a forward pocket and played my first game, and I was really wrapped because the year before I played in the reserves. We played in the grand final, and Dave Darcy was my teammate there, and he was in the side, so that was great. And then all of a sudden they told me your first rover. I thought, oh gee. And I said, who's my opponent? Because I didn't take much notice. And they said, it's Alan Aylett. And I thought, oh, gee. So I didn't panic or anything because I thought we're only playing football. So we got there and we played, and we didn't have a good day. I think if I believe Doc got our best, and I had my first day game, I think I kicked 3 goals. So I was happy with my performance, but because of the team never won, it weren't a great day.
Yes, absolutely. But it didn't take long because I believe in round 2, you kicked another 3 goals, and you were instrumental in a come from behind victory against the Royals. Can you remember that? And what was it like to sing the song for the first time in front of the faithful?
Oh, it was good. You know, as you said, the win, the second game was terrific because I think we were lower down the ladder at the time, and it was really good. And we all got into singing. It was terrific. And to beat the Roys, Ray wouldn't have been too happy because he's an old Roy boy. And no, it was really good. It was terrific. We had a terrific bunch of fellas and to play with, and they helped a hell of a lot.
How was it then, Georgie, that, you know, after 2 games, you'd kick 6 goals? Like it's a huge transition, I guess, to come from local footy and go straight into league, you know, into the league. How did you explode so quickly? Did you feel comfortable from the outset?
Oh, yeah, I didn't worry too much about going to say that because, as I said to you earlier, that I played 3 years of open age football, and I played against Bob McKenzie. Used to play for Melbourne a long time ago. I was only a kid, and some real good players, because when I first went there to play, and a friend of mine took me there, and after the game, they give me £2. And I said, what's this for? He said, oh, that's for playing. I said, oh, I didn't think I got paid for playing football. I said, I love football. And then there's an extra 10 bob for winning. So I had 30 bob. So I was wrapped. But the football was very tough, very tough. And I had a little bit of an idea then against stronger people how to protect yourself and be in, because when you think of it, I always had the thought, well, I've got 2 legs, they've got 2 arms. I might be short, but who cares?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my dad grew up watching you and idolising you, and he said exactly that. You didn't take a backward step.
I was always told first to get in first or they'll get you.
Yes, indeed. And that still applies to today, Georgie. Now, the 1960s, you know, I guess they weren't as fruitful as they may have been. You know, after 1961, we made the grand final. There were great hopes. We had injection of youth and some fantastic talent, yourself included. But we, you know, for some reason, success evaded us. What was the reason that we just didn't quite elevate ourselves, George?
Well, I could say this, for the 10 years 11 years I was at Footscray, the same problem was that we couldn't kick goals. And if you have a look at it, other than Beasley, Templeton, they were later on, we never had a real 100-goal kicker or something like that in their sides. And we could get the ball right down there. And I've always said to anyone, if you don't kick goals, you don't win games. And you've got to have forwards. And And it took when I won I think the goal kicking 5 times, and I was equal winner with 16 goals for the season. So it went a great year.
Yeah, I see. So, I guess that was a part of the puzzle that probably just didn't drop into place, that that tall forward at the time. But, you yourself were renowned for your goal kicking and your nous around the goal face. You say 5 times leading goal kicker. That's phenomenal. And, there were 3 occasions you kicked 45 goals in a season. So you could find the big sticks. Could you give us your bronze, silver and gold, your 3 best goals that you can recall that you kicked? I'm putting you on the spot here.
Oh, yeah, must be on that because, I'd have to say my first goal I kicked against North Melbourne, it would either be probably a punt kick, torpedo, drop kick. You can either take your pick, but I couldn't remember. But I remember my first one. It was quite good.
So, Georgie, really interestingly, you're on record for saying that the players these days get more money, but you guys back in the day had more fun. Can you explain what you mean by that and share some of the stories of, some things you guys got up to?
Well, they earn their money now, I'll put it that way. But we enjoyed playing football. I really enjoyed. Once I made league football, and I played for the Guernsey because I thought everybody would love to play for either any side in Victoria at the time. To play league football was an honour.
Dougie Hawkins reminded us that there was an incident involving the Sunshine Drive-ins that he'd love you to tell us the story. You mentioned your horse earlier.
Yes. Well, I know no could know about that because I was pretty friends with Doug's mother, Thelma. And, well, this day when the sun set on Rodsburn Road, they opened up the drive-in and you could ride a bike, motorbike, walk in, and a few of me mates like Les Day, Jeff Radford, a few other blokes said, "Oh, well, why don't we've got a baker's cart? Why don't we hitch up Crowbar?" That was the name of our horse. It might sound funny. And so we harnessed him up and whacked him in the baker's cart and went down there, and we went into the thing. They just let us in, and we had a few in the back, 2 drivers. So we went in and we just, as we said, we drove the horse and then we reversed it back so we can put it near the speaker, and we popped it on the saddle and harness, and then we just watched the picture, and then we all come out later.
So this is a horse and cart wagon watching the drive-ins.
Yes. It was a baker's cart, and but it was a true story. It was an experience for us because we were really probably lunatics, and we were only teenagers, and everywhere we went, we rode horses, and a lot of my friends that I knocked around with never played football, so I was the only one. And I went to the football and played. On a Saturday, they'd go right, and I'd go Sunday with them. But it was a true story.
Brilliant. Well, I know what I'd rather do, and that'd be pulling on the red, white, and blue. And you did it, week in, week out. Can you tell us what it was also like to pull on the big V Guernsey?
Well, that was magnificent. I do remember that day. It was in the carnival when I got picked, and I was so thrilled to represent the state, and it was really good. And Doc would have played in a carnival over there. I think you played with Tassie, didn't you, Doc? Yes. And in '69 we were over there in Adelaide, and it was fantastic. And we played against Victoria in them days had all the good players. They never played for their states, so we had a fairly good side there. But it was a terrific experience. We were over there for a whole week playing the game, and it was quite good, very good.
Well, I saw the scoreline, and it didn't unfortunately flatter Ray Walker's Tasmanian team, but you guys came out with the chocolates. Can you tell us a little bit about how you went in that game and some of the teammates, phenomenal teammates that you played with?
Well, firstly, Peter Hudson was full forward. Then we had Jeselink on the half forward flank, Big Nick in the ruck, Sammy Newman in the back pocket. You can go on and on in the centre because Peter Bedford, Kevin Bartlett was rover, and at Fitzroy was Johnny Newman and Kevin Murray. So we had the best of the lead playing with us, which was fantastic.
Yeah, well, that's the who's who of VFL footy at the time, and I imagine you just must have been walking on air playing alongside of those.
Oh, yeah, it was really an experience, and it was very good. It was like, you go to silver service all the time with your lead for the ball. They hit you with a lace out or something like that. So it was quite good, very good.
Yeah, incredible. And 1969 is the year you're speaking about. You had a phenomenal year, as we're going to speak about now. The year started off with a bang. In round one against the Royals, you came out all systems blazing and snagged 6 goals. Can you remember how that season started and what unfolded?
Oh yeah, well, we had that starting off that way. I think EJ wanted us to really start with a bang, and as you said, I got 6. I think Spargo got 6 in the same game. Ricky Spargo, we kicked a big score, and I can remember that day because I was on the ball and I was just about to go into the pocket, and I said, Rick, I'll go back on again because Ricky had just kicked 3 goals in a row. So I said, you're running hot. I'll go back on the ball a little bit longer. And he finished up kicking 6, but I think we kicked it all in the 20s or something goals. It was a real good start off.
Yes, so you must have been very optimistic for the season ahead, and your purple patch continued because in round 11, you kicked a career high 7 goals against the Kangas. You like playing against the Kangas. Tell us about that match and what a phenomenal performance.
Yeah, well, that was my highest tally in goals on 7, and it was a good. I enjoyed that game because they beat North Melbourne because that was my mum's side, and she wasn't too happy about it, but that gave me a little bit of a thrill. And yeah, we had a good day that day, and I was lucky enough to get 7. And as you said, we struggled for forwards, at tall forwards. I'd rather be passing the ball to a forward more so that, you've got to be the main bloke because a little bloke's not going to win games all the time.
Yeah, it sounds like you must have. And as the season started to unfold, you were very fast becoming one of the favourites for the Brownlow medal. And then round 14 came about against Carlton mid-season. It's one of the most famous games for some of the wrong reasons, I guess, in terms of what happened to you. Can you just walk us through some of the events of that and what eventuated, Georgie?
Oh, yeah. From the best of my memory, I hope on that. I remember the ball was on the wing, and I just come off the ball. I was in the forward pocket, and sort of a blue started on the wing. And where I was, I could see the whole thing pretty clearly, and I weren't too happy with one of the Carlton blokes said what he'd done to Ray Haynes. Was a friend of mine too. And I thought, oh, bugger this, I'm not a whip down there. And so I ran down, and I was surprised I ran past EJ because he's generally always into a separating or giving the blokes a couple of cuffs or something like that. And I got there, and the bloke I wanted to snot over, he gone. And I thought, oh, geez, all this, I'll get buggered. So I hit Robbo instead, and we both got reported. And
you both got reported, so did he?
Yeah, he got reported. I hit him, and he hit me back, so which is fair enough. But the thing was that we both got reported, but we were saying to the umpire, what are you reporting us for? And he said, you hit each other. I said, no, that was nothing. I knew him. So we're talking and something like that. And but we did get reported, and at the front, up at the tribunal, and as I said to him, not guilty, and they got it proved it's not guilty, so we got out of it. But
so what you're saying, back in those days, if both players denied that it happened, then it didn't happen because there was no.
No, because we used to get together and like I'd say to Robbo, well, what do we have to say? And he'd say to me, the best. What do we say? We just say we never hit each other or something like that. And poor umpire, I must admit, was on more trial than we were, and they had to prove that they did it, and we got out. But as you said, we were lucky.
Yeah, well, I know that later on, maybe a decade later, when Ray Walker was working for the tribunal, they used to wheel in the video evidence, and that changed things. So I guess you were the last generation of getting away with that.
Oh yeah. It's it's funny how when players do get reported, they always believe they're not guilty, which is probably true. But the umpires have got to prove it now. The TV show everything up, and it's very hard to do anything illegal if you didn't want to, But if a bloke was annoying you, you got to try and do something. Because one day at Hawthorn, we're playing, and this Brian Shinnet's played. I think he come from Richmond to Hawthorn. We finished up playing with Danny, was one of the toughest blokes I ever played on, and he was standing on my toes, pulling me shorts and everything. And I thought, oh, that's fair enough. I thought I've had enough of this, and I give him a whack, and he whacked me back again, the same thing. And the umpires got us for wrestling. So it was hard, but you still had to look after yourself, and that's where it comes back to me Sunday football, where I said, yeah, that was the toughest football I've ever played, and we had to look after ourselves pretty self. Because EJ used to say, you've got to look after yourself as well.
Yes,
he couldn't look after all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. So going back to that game against Carlton, I understand that you had 32 possessions. You kicked a bag of 6 goals that game. So you pretty much gave yourself every opportunity to give yourself some Brownlow votes. 2, maybe, possibly 3. I think Jezelenko maybe kicked 6 or 7 at the other end. So it would have been out of you and Jezza to get the votes.
Yeah.
In the end, you ended up, being 1 vote behind Kevin Murray to win the Brownlow. So was that just something that you look back on and just say, oh my God, that could have been very different?
Well, it could have been the way that you say it there, that if I would have got 1 vote, I would have won it. But I don't take nothing away from Kevin Murray. He was an excellent footballer. True. The old Bulldog, I know him well, and he was excellent. So I would, doing that would take too much away for his win, because I would love to win it, don't get me wrong, but I never take anything away from Kevin Murray. Yes, I might have won it, but I will never take anything away from Kevin Murray. But he's won the medal, which he deserved.
Yes, absolutely. And, we can all acknowledge Kevin Murray. What an incredible.
Oh, no, excellent. Yeah, Doc would be the same way as me.
Yeah, absolutely. But I guess, just in terms of the technicality side of things, if the rules were as they are today and a player gets off, they're eligible and eligible to get votes. So, in some ways, there's that could have been a very different scenario.
In one way, it might be my favour being run. I seem to be more famous being runner-up than bloody winning it.
Fair enough. Well, later on that year, you did end up taking home, a very special medal. Can you tell us about what you won at the club?
Terrific. To win a best and first at any age and in your club that you represent with so many good players and teammates and that, and even as you say, EJ, which I rate very highly, Johnny Schultz was in it. Oh, it was a really honour to win that, and I was really rapt to win a best and fairest in the lead club, because when you play, you don't play to win best and fairest or things like that, because the first thing you want to be a good teammate and support your team. And but I was very, very happy to win a best and fairest at Footscray. It's terrific.
Yeah, well, you've got your name etched amongst, some of the most amazing players in our club history, and obviously so well deserved in that particular year. We'd love to hear a little bit about some of your favourite players that you played with. That you've started to mention a couple of them there. Can you tell us, who loom large and stand out in your mind?
Oh, well, as you say, you couldn't go past EJ and Johnny Schultz, and you go on Ian Bryant, and you go on so many of them that even my mate Doc Walker, you mentioned him through the Braybrook, and it's gone on. But blokes there, I can tell you, Puddin' Chalmers, I played football, a lot of football with him at Footscray. Did that come up when I got 4 weeks for snotting him?
Well, I would like to hear more about that.
Well, I'll tell you that one. That goes back to we're playing a practice match, and as I said, I really like Puddin'. I don't know what happened that day, but I hit him, and the umpire reported me. And I said, it's only a practice match. And he said, no, I'm reporting you. And I said, oh, and I told him where to go and that. And he said, I'll report you again for swearing. And I said, oh, all right, And then when I had to front up, I was surprised. And then I got 4 weeks in a practice match for abusing the umpire and hitting me teammate. Oh, you missed out on that one.
That's magnificent. Wow, that's probably a first, I would say, George.
Yeah, because that time, if you don't, it'd be hard to do your research. 60, I don't know when it was. Billy Barrett was reported too in a practice match, but he got out of it. So and But I didn't this day because I think I swore at him, and and that's what he reckons I did. I don't reckon I did, but that's what happened. And then EJ went to happen. I don't think he talked to me until I got back.
Wow, that's an incredible story.
Yeah, you missed that one.
Absolutely, I did. Well, we're not missing it now. That is going to be laid for everyone.
Oh, don't say that. I forget because I've hit my own team, and I'm not happy with that.
Oh, brilliant. So tell us about some of your opponents that you really respect and admire, but also some of the tough kind of matches and matchups that you had with them.
Oh, as I said, look, my first game at Alan Aylett, which was a champion, and Bobby Skilton was an excellent rover against very, very good. When I first played against him, he kicked the ball once, and I think it might have been on his left foot. Well, we kicked about 50 yards drop kick, and I thought, well, I've got to play him on his right side so he can come back into me a lot. And then he got the ball and kicked 50 yards on his wrong foot. I said, well, I think I'm in trouble now here, because he didn't worry about which way he was. He could kick both feet. And this is where we were taught up in Braybrook to kick both feet. And even I have to say now, there's a lot of players don't. That's why they get around the corners or kick banana and things like that. Their 2 feet are not as confident. But Bobby Skelton, then you can go on and on. I found Peter Crimmins a very good rover at Hawthorn. He was very hard, very tough, at you all the time. Oh, we also had Billy Goggin. You can go on nearly every side. Had Johnny Newman, Essendon, Johnny Burt, one of the smartest blokes I've ever played football. And I think I might have mentioned the doc was Jack Clark. He started as a centre player and then come as a rover, and he was one of the smartest blokes you would ever play on.
What did he do?
Oh, he was just very shifty. He was just clever. He'd stop the ball and we'd run past. He'd stop it because he knew what he was going to do. Stop it first. We'd go past him. He'd pick it up and go on. And he swerved. He was clever. He's very hard. And Johnny Burt was just an excellent player. So, as I said, Tommy, you can pick a lot of rovers out, but they were outstanding and hard. But I always felt it brought the best out of you if you play the best. Like, as I said, I had confidence in myself, but I might have been small in that, but I thought, I could do all right against them.
Oh, well, I'll say you absolutely did from the stories we've heard, George. Phenomenal. What about coaches that coached you? So you had some of the great names. How were they different in their styles, and how did they inspire you and teach you your craft?
Well, I'd have to give a lot up to Braybrook in that way with old Jimmy Mead. He was terrific. Like I'll have to go back to Braybrook here when I was playing. And this is cricket. I was playing with Braybrook, and I was in slips at the time. And Jimmy used to ride his bike from near Ashley Street to the ground. This is every Saturday, and I think Doc spoke highly of him as well. And I was feeling in slips, and when it was tea time, we went in, and he said, "George, you got a minute?" And I said, "Yeah, for sure, Jim." And he said, "What are you doing in slips?" I said, "Oh, well, the skipper might have put me there to try and catch ball." He said, "Get out in the outfield and start running." He said, "It'll help your footy." So that was just a thought that you got to be on the move all the time. It slips, you're standing still for nearly the whole day. He was very good. And I spoke highly of Roy Evans. He was probably the influence of me to change me way of thinking, because I was lucky enough to play in a grand final with him, and I played 3 games under 19 and then went to the seconds. And Roy Evans was fantastic. Like, even some of the games we played, and if we were behind by 4 or 5 goals, he'd explain you, come in, talk to you, and he'd explain you how to win it, get back into the game. No yelling, no screaming, and he'd get you back into the game. And that year we won the flag. It was so fantastic. And there was 5, Dave Darcy, Eddie O'Halloran, Colin Bandel, Bobby Gray, and Bobby Sperling, I think. And they were under 19s, and he just had them up fantastic. And there's a story there that I always tell people about, is when I was going in, we were walking into the MCG, and I was going into the get changed for the grand final, and there would have been something like 40,000 or more. I think Collingwood might have been playing at the time later on. and he had a music going in a corner. And as I went in, I looked over, he had a bloke, the squeeze box, playing roll out the barrel and things like that. And he relaxed the whole lot of us. And that was his caper. And then, as you said, he was excellent. EJ was aspiring. Charlie Sutton was just a tough, really tough sort of a player, because one day he got me and I was having a bit bad day, and he was trying to take me off, and I thought, oh, he's after me. So I kept running away and going down the ground or something like that. And when he got me, he walked me right around the boundary line and taught me a bit of a lesson that way.
This is Charlie or something.
Yeah, when he was my other coach, yeah. Sutton there, and Bobby and Neil Mann was very good when I went to Collingwood. But Roy Evans was the best out of all of them.
Wow, what a huge statement.
That's my statement. And I think when you interview people that come through him,
yes,
you'll be surprised at how highly they rate him. But I rated him very highly.
Incredible. Well, it sounds really ahead of his time there.
He was very much ahead of it. And what a gentleman. He was a real gentleman.
Yeah, well, it just goes to show, that like screaming and yelling and trying to get your point across is not necessarily the way to inspire.
Now, if he can explain to you how to win the game, that's better than all this yelling and thing. Because he can come out and have a go, But he explained how to win the game. And that 8 out of 10 times we'd win it.
Beautiful. And, other coaches that you had, you talked about Charlie and EJ, they've been known, I guess, for some of their catchphrases and some of their, inspiring speeches. Did they ever impart any, really amazing pieces of advice or any sort of statements that they made that stick into your memory?
Oh, well, I knew that with Sutton, he was very tough. You had to be up, all the time, be at it and at it. If you got hit, you got to get up. Things like that to show, the opposition you're not hurt. And he was more sort of really into the game like that. EJ, he was a pretty good coach. He was good tactics, sort of. But one day at Richmond, we're playing a punt road, and Hobbsy and myself were roving, and EJ was a centre half forward. And then after centre half forward, he was having a bit of a bad day, EJ, and he come up at a half time and said, right, I used to go into centre half forward. And we looked at each other and, well, hey, we're going to centre half forward, we're only midgets. And EJ said, no, I want you up there. So we changed at centre half forward. And what it done was brought the back pocket to play centre half back, which he mightn't have been too happy. He took the bloke who was on top of EJ into the forward pocket, which turned the game because EJ would kick a couple of goals. So that was a very clever and thinking coach.
Yeah, okay, that's fantastic. And I know that you and Merv Hobbs could take a grab, even though you weren't the tallest of players. So what an inspired move that would have been.
Yeah, well, that was it always sticks in my mind how EJ done that, because he thought would put the opposition, because the back pocket was mine and me in the pocket, which is a bit easier than up the ground. He had to play centre half back, and that was the point. And EJ took his centre half back there, which was a winner move.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as the years rolled on, George, I just want to take you to 1972. So your 11th year down at the Kennel. You're a Bulldog player through and through.
Yeah.
And in that last game that you played at the Western Oval, you had 38 disposals. So you're on top of your game, many people believe. And then suddenly you leave the club. How on earth did that come to be?
Well, it's a story that I was at work, and I got a phone call from North Melbourne, and they said to me, George, you're a 10-year player. And I said, yeah. And he said, there'll be a rule coming up that you could go anywhere in the league. It didn't even interest me really. And I said, oh yeah. And I said, fair enough. And then I come in, and then Footscray got a bit of a wind of it that I could leave, and I had talks with them, and my first talks was very good. They were excellent, and I went home and told the family that I'll be staying at Footscray, because we had a meeting, and at that meeting, when I left, I was a Bulldog player, and then they wanted me to go back again, and in that time, Collingwood had got onto me, and I was playing bowls at the time, and I was playing for Footscray City in bowls, and I was over at over Heidelberg way, and I ran into someone from Collingwood, and they mentioned a 10-year player, and I said, yeah. I'd never even given it a thought that Collingwood would ring me, and they rang me, and I had to talk to them, and they were interested in me, and so I went back to Footscray, and I said, look, when I left from the first meeting, I was a Bulldog player, and I said, that was it. And then when I got called back again, they wanted to say, I said, no. You said to me at the first meeting I was a Bulldog player. And I said no, and then I got involved with Collingwood, and they just offered me a 2-year contract.
Wow.
I should have stayed at Footscray, but that was just the true story.
Wow. Well, my dad is still traumatized by it.
No, that's the true story how things happen. I was a Footscray player when, and a good friend of mine, Gordon Watt, was there. He was treasurer, and he wrote down everything. And he's on my side about that meeting. He said, you got a bad deal.
Wow.
And Collingwood asked me, and I said, fair enough. And they shook me hand and give me a 2-year deal.
Well, you broke the hearts of many, pulling on the Collingwood Guernsey. What was it like to come back and represent Collingwood and come back to Footscray in front of all your adoring fans? And I know you played the Dogs 4 times, and the Dogs didn't prevail on any one of those occasions.
No, it weren't great, really, because my heart was with Footscray. It was just that one, because I would have loved to stay there, but I do believe when they say something to you, you go along with what that was said. I walked out the meeting, I was a Bulldog.
Yes.
And then I got called back again, and they just said, "Yeah, and I said, no. I said, no, you made your decision. And then it was sad, but Collingwood were pretty straight. They just said to me, George, we'd like to have you. So I went there.
Yeah, well, the Bulldog loss was Collingwood's gain, because I know you played 2 great seasons there.
Yeah, that was one of my biggest worries when I went there, with playing in a side like that. When I say how Ella right to put it is that they nearly made the finals every year. Might have won the grand finals because they had that reputation, but I had a terrific time at Collingwood. They treated me very well and everything, and I was prepared to put everything in to try and, do well there. And I was quite happy. I think I ran 4th in the best and fairest my first year. So I was really, really happy that at that time that I'd done all right over there. Yeah,
and in that year, 73, I'm right in saying that you won the media MVP award.
Yes, yeah, I won that. They had that was for the first year. They had one for the league and one for the association, and you might be able to doc. Ian Cooper played with St Kilda, is that it? Yeah, Ian Cooper won the association one. I still got it at home, and it had every paper that was there, the Sunday Press, the Advertiser, the Sporting Globe, the Herald, and that was a thrill to get votes of the sports writers to win it.
Yeah, it's really an amazing accolade, and that award even today is held right up in the highest.
Yeah, and one that has stopped there that I did win at Collingwood as well as that, the Ghazali Award. So I got that year too. So that was a big award that all the players got. We got a big statue with Ghazali from South Melbourne in a statue mark on one hand. So I was happy to do that. So, but as I said, I would love to finish my time at the Red, White and Blue.
Yeah, well, your career in some ways mirrors Laurie Sandilands, because a similar thing happened to him, and he went to the Pies, and he describes, coming down and returning to the Kennel and walking into the opposition change rooms. Can you tell us what it was like to be in there? Because I've heard some stories that it's cold water. Did they turn on the hot water for you, surely?
Oh, I don't know. I might have sneaked over with the Bulldogs and got their hot water. No, it was... Yeah, it's funny to go there because you've been 11 years going that way, and I had to go the other way, and running out was, it was experience. But as I said, at that time, I become a black and white player, which I played for, and but it was still an honour to play against Footscray.
Yeah, absolutely. But you know what? You couldn't keep away from the Kennel. You returned, and we had a great interview recently with Choco Royal, and he said he idolised you as a Bulldog fan before he actually became a Bulldog player. And to see you return under Terry Wheeler's watch as a skills coach, Dougie said you were just so passionate and skilled in your communication and just really respectful of how you worked with some of those players. Can you tell us who you took under your wing when you returned?
Yeah, it was Scotty West and Libber. I worked a lot with Libber at the time because, he said to me one day, he said, why did you want to kick both feet all the time? I said, your wrong foot gets you out of trouble. I said, that's why you kick both feet. And then after a while, he started to kick right foot, and then he got the point. It's easier for you, don't come back into play. And that's when you can't kick both feet. You always come back into play. Scotty West, Choco I worked with, but Choco was pretty good. He knew what the game was about. But one day I had a player to look at during the game with Scotty West. And Will said to me, I want you to have a look at him and you can work with him during the week. And this day, Scotty kicked 7 goals. And Will spoke to me and he said, what did you think? I said, well, when he has a bad day, how can you tell anyone when he's kicked 7 goals? But Wills was a very good coach. He had Bones McGee there and looking after the backs, and Big Lurch, Dempsey. So it was quite good. Libby was funny. He'd always be like a sponge. He'd always want to ask things. And we used to stay out a bit later. And then we used to show him how to kick drop kicks and torpedoes and things like that. And he was really interested in a lot of football and became a Brownlow medalist, And people wouldn't have thought, when he was really getting cleared from Footscray.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, he tells me that you used to, even when the lights were about to go off at Western Oval, you'd just keep him out there and practicing him. And you told him, hey, this is how you kick a drop kick. Maybe try and do one of those in the game. And you almost convinced him, he's told me.
Yeah, the coach might have been too convinced to throw it. Well, when you mentioned that, I'll tell you a story that old Jimmy Mead said to me. He was mad on a place kick. And Doc's laughing behind me because he would have asked him, but he used to show me how to do a place kick. And he used to show me a Braybrook, and I was getting the art of doing it. And he said to me, I said, but I wasn't game enough to do it in a game. But I did try it at Super Rules when I played Super Rules, and I placed it there, and a bloke, my opponent, looked at me on the mark and said, what the hell are you doing? Having a bit of ding. I said, you just watch it. If you're not dark, it'll go right through you. Because I placed it near him and I ran up and didn't have hand and went to kick it. He just bowled it because I was going straight through him. But I did the place kick in the game.
How did it go?
Along the ground.
Okay, only once then. Good.
Oh, yeah. But the only thing I never got dragged from the coach was only Super was we might only just had 18.
Brilliant. Well, just on Libber for a second, how much joy did you get from seeing him thrive, winning at Brownlow, and all the things he achieved there? Do you sort of sit back and say, I had a bit of a say in that?
I thought it was excellent. I thought for a bloke that just absolutely loves the game and the pressure he got put under, and then he become, which was very good, become a match winner as a rover. Like when they looked at Libber, they might have let him go earlier, but then he became very tagged because the opposite knew how good he was, because his biggest asset was bringing in people around and get the ball so much, handball out and doing things like that. But it was fantastic to see him win the Brownlow medal, and for him to play over 300 games and to see his young boy doing so well is terrific.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, you as a Bulldog fan these days, I've seen you walking around the terraces and, cheering on the Dogs from the sidelines, even today. What was it like being at the 2016 grand final? You toiled for so many years. You didn't get to play finals at the Kennel yourself.
No.
What was it like to see that ultimate success?
That was terrific. It was one of the best days of my life. I remember I come out by train and went up there and I sat there and up in the grandstand, and I was so happy to see him win. And I thought, The third quarter, when we sort of got on top of them, the longer the game went, I thought, well, we might have a chance to win this flag, and it was fantastic. And I must give credit to South Melbourne. The crowd we were separated by a sort of a fence, and they were arguing with each other, the Dogs, during the game with the South. And then when the game finished, a couple of the South Melbourne blokes shook the Footscray supporters' hands, and I thought that was terrific. Really good. And went home by train. I think I floated home. It was terrific.
Yeah, thanks for saying, George. What a day it was for us all.
Oh, it was fantastic.
Yeah, indeed. Now, Georgie, without any word of warning here, we're going to put you on the spot, put you back in the hot seat, because we usually end these podcasts with a little bit of a quiz. And the man over your left shoulder did particularly well in his quiz.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to give you two categories. We'll give you a tiny bit of power here. You can choose which one you'd like, and we're going to put 60 seconds on the clock, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So would you like to have the 1970s or Bulldog Grand Finals?
Oh, gee. Bulldogs Grand Final. Well, I'll go the Grand Finals.
Grand Finals. All right, fantastic. Well, we've just spoken about one of them. All right, here we go. Good luck. Your time, sir, starts now. The Dogs have played in 3 senior Grand Finals since 1925. Is that true or false?
True.
It's false. They've played in 4. The Bulldogs' heaviest defeat in a Grand Final was against the Hawks in 1961. Is that true or false?
False.
Correct. Wally Donald was Footscray's vice-captain in the 1954 flag. Is that true or false?
True.
Correct. Who was the leading goal kicker in the 1954 premiership?
Collins.
Correct. Aside from Jason Johannesson, which other 2 Bulldog players polled in the Norm Smith votes in 2016?
That's a pass, that one.
Pass. How many goals did Tory Dixon score in the 2016 premiership win?
5.
He kicked 3. Finish this famous 1954 phrase from Charlie Sutton. Shop early to what?
Shop early. Oh, geez, you've got me there. Shop early. Doug says it all the time. He'd know that off by heart. Shop early. Oh, forget the last bit.
To avoid the rush. And
that's it.
what was the attendance at the 2016 Grand Final?
Oh, you can have a guess for me.
I honestly think that we need to get to defer this last question because the time is up to our man just behind you. Ray, you're going to give a chance to answer this one for him. What was the attendance? You want to have a stab?
At the 2016 Grand Final.
That's right.
It would have been something in the order of about 108,000.
Oh, it wasn't quite that high. It was 99,981. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Your old mate couldn't help you out there.
No, he done better than I did.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, I'm just going to put the scores up on the board right now, and here they come. Oh, well done, Georgie. You're not quite up at the top, but you've done a fantastic effort. Well done, sir.
Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, you'll be pleased to know Dougie's still at the top of the ladder.
Oh, that's great. A Braybrook boy, we're wrapped.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, look, we've got Brad Hardy coming on next week, so hopefully he can knock him over. Now, George, before we let you go, we've got a final thing that we want to ask, and that is firstly, how would you like to be remembered? And are there any sort of final messages that you'd like to give to Bulldog supporters, young and old, who have loved you over your journey?
Oh, well, at first, I'd like him just to remember that how I used to try as much as I possibly can and give that as much as I did for the red, white and blue. Every time I went out, I tried as hard as possible, and as the win was terrific.
And any final words for Bulldog supporters, young and old?
For this year, to keep heart, because I've said to Doc a few times, I think we'll make the 8 for sure. And once you get in the 8 and we prove that we can do anything, because we won a flag from 5th, but I think we're getting into a fair sort of a side. I still don't think they've settled it properly. I think they've got a good chance to keep their chin up, and it's not over to the last film.
Absolutely. Well, that sounds like it's how you played your career, Georgie. Never give up and have faith and courage. And you know what? We're absolutely delighted to have had you on Inside the Kennel. We'll remember this interview, and I hope all our supporters can enjoy it as much as I.
I really love doing it, and I'd like to thank Doc very much for giving me an opportunity to use his thing. Thank you, and you.
Fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, Georgie Bisset.
Red in my heart, white in my veins, blue in one eye, red, white, and blue in my brain. I'm Bulldog born, Bulldog, that's my breed. I was born to follow where the Bulldogs lead. That's Scotty.